What up, y'all? It's your boy Ben here, and that's right, we're already going to look at the data that we have for Eevee Groove here. Excuse me, Eevee Grove. I really do like Eevee Groove, but we'll just stick that there. So let me know before we get into everything what your favorite deck that you've been like tinkering with, what cards you like highlighting, because this is the stage in which you are allowed to just be creative as folks are trying to figure out what works best for them, and what better way to do that than to just take it against top competition. So we're going to be looking at just kind of like the way too early meta game here for what's to come, what people are deciding to bring into tournaments already. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, and as we dive into it, go ahead, if you like the content, hit that like, subscribe, and definitely click the notification bell button. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right on in, y'all. So we have here, we're already looking at Solgaleo and Shiinotic are like still making a head strong here. Like, it was 7%, the most popular deck to play out here. However, we're only seeing a 48% win here. What was interesting, that while there was only 5 decks, right, so only like 3% or 2.5% of the meta share here, a whopping 71% win rate inside of this tournament. New decks that came out. However, we have a Flareon EX, which we're going to be taking a look at. We're seeing Savali, Charizard EX, and Savali not doing as well, like, right, dropping down to a 42% win rate. Buzzwole EX, Celesteela, some folks can really argue that this has been the best deck of Extra Dimensional Crisis. Only pulled out a 44% here. Sylveon EX, Eevee EX pulled out a 50% win rate. But we're going to continue to just kind of like look up to see if new cards were able to show out here. We have Surpluff and Alcremie as an option here, getting a 50%. Dragonite or Choreo. Oh, I mean, come on, Dragonite EX. This is like our first, our second Dragon EX, but like this is the EX that we've all been waiting for, so I'm excited to like kind of go through what those cards look like as well. Primarina EX and Primarina, unfortunately, 10... oh wow, 1% of the mid share, 2 decks here, 20%, not really doing well for itself. But then we're seeing some kind of other combinations though, right? Like Flareon solo deck with Eevee EX, we're seeing Darkrai with Umbreon, we're seeing Gengar EX with Sylveon. And so people aren't shying away from like trying to test out cards and combinations here, which is like the fun part here. I mean, even things like Magnezone Sylveon and Solgaleo Sylveon here, right? There, folks are trying to get the extra draw power, and I think for these kinds of cards, I think Magnezone and Sylveon EX can work together because Magnezone obviously draws its own energy, so that way you can still run Psychic and still use Sylveon as an attacker, whereas for Solgaleo EX you are dependent upon that card draw, and Shiinotic might just be the better answer here because you're not just where you're giving up drawing 2 cards, you're drawing 1 Pokemon card, and that can get you to your Solgaleo much faster, especially if you have 2 of those Shiinotics set up here. But who knows, like, I'm very curious to see this out in play and testing this one out myself kind of thing. And so as we continue to look down, we're like, we're only seeing the nitty gritties here of like just 1 decks here, but it's really cool to see that like Flareon EX and Turtonator are what folks are like really drawing into. Sylveon are what card folks are drawing into as well for the new cards, and there's some love with the Sweets Relay and some Dragonite EX. So let's go ahead and like look into those decks there. So up first we have this Flareon EX Turtonator deck. We'll just take a look at this top one. They went 7 and 2 here, and as we open up their image here, they are running 2 Turtonators, 2 Kawais. You have your Flareon EX here. The name of the game is to potentially start off with this Turtonator here. I'm assuming use Kawhi to get that energy up, get the 3rd energy, and then every time that you attack you get to discard the energy, and then Flareon EX can then get the energy through their combustion. You use Eevee Bag and Pokemon Center Lady to get your Flareon EX nice and healthy before you start attacking. Now, what I like about the Turtonator combination, which is something that I was also drawn to, is that this is a basic Pokemon with high HP. So there is Torkoal that has like only 100 HP. There's Oricorio that only has 70 HP. And we saw the Salandit, which I don't remember off the top of my head how much HP that has, but that's a new card in here. So Turtonator, out of like the discard fire energies, that is a basic Pokemon, is definitely the highest HP, highest attack here, and with the supporter to essentially get you 2 energy off rip when you can able to play it, allows you to drive this engine pretty quickly as well. So that's really nice. I do like the construction here, the thought process behind here, and I think that is kind of similar to what I am looking at. The opponent is choosing to go with Mars and with red card instead of something like a Cyrus as well. So very interesting for like your supporter and your item cards of choice here. I think Mars and your red card are your flex slots. I do think having your Pokemon Center Lady and your EV bag for options of healing and or reaching above into that additional attack here, especially since you can stack them on the same turn, is pretty good. So let's go ahead and continue to see another deck build here. These folks were focusing on Sylveon EX and Eevee EX, so really just kind of like all in on Sylveon here. So let's see what this looks like. This deck also went 7-2. And so this is like the fun part about Eevee EX, right? Like you have opportunities to have 4 Pokemon evolutions, 4 evolutions on the board, which is awesome. So they are running 1 Espeon. I think this Espeon, you know, like we're just gonna pull this up. This Espeon is so good. It's so good. I mean, for 1 energy, you're dealing 20 damage for all of the energy that's attached to your opponent's Pokemon. So anything that's in the back, active, doesn't matter. You're able to multiply that up and get the energy going. So I think that's a really cool design for an attack, and again, finding ways to differentiate between Pokemon and Pokemon attacks is really cool instead of just printing the same line, and I like that a lot. So there's Espeon here. Sylveon, this attack does 30 more damage for each evolution Pokemon on your bench, or each evolution Pokemon. So, you know, you could, you know, have another 90 attack here by having Sylveon, Espeon, and another Sylveon on there, right? Like you have, like, this is built for you to fill up your bench, attack for 130 for 2 damage. You're gonna draw into your cards because you have the Sylveon EX out there. I like it. I like it. I like the focus here on Sylveon. I like this being your additional attacker. I like the Sylveon EX being able to get your happy ribbons going, being able to draw it to your deck. The Energy Crush also allows you to deal more damage than what your opponent is like expecting you to do. So like, I like this a lot. So this is great. This is great. I love seeing what people are starting to cook up for new decks. And yes, you can always rely on what we've had before, but the creativity to come out with some new things is pretty sweet. And then let's go ahead and take a look at this Surfbluff Alcremie deck. Best deck here is 4 and 3. But, you know, hey, they had some wins in here, and so that's awesome. So really taking advantage of this sweet relay action here, where we can see with Swirlix, and we can just like zoom in here just a little bit. If this Pokemon, one of your Pokemon uses Sweet Relay during your last turn, this attack does 20 more damage. Then you evolve, attach another energy. This does 60 more damage, so you can attack for 90. If they use the last turn, this does 30. If they use the last turn, but Alchemy here is like your big boss of the Sweets Relay, because it goes for Sweets Overload, which allows you to do 40x more damage for every single time that you use Sweets Relay. So being able to survive, attack with Sweets Relay, like it's 120 HP. You go through that twice, set this Alchemy up. Who knows how much damage that you can absolutely do here. I like that a lot. I think it's a cool mechanic, and the fact that the Sweets Overload and Sweets Relay are all what I was gonna say, colorless energy is pretty fun, because we have like Vanillux and like Appleton that also have like coded Sweets Relay into them as well too. So you could run a deck that has Grass and Psychic in there. You could run it, you know, like just to like, you know, cover your bases for weaknesses. Like if fire decks are like up top and you're having a hard time with this like archetype, you can throw Vanillux in here and like still feel pretty good about that, which I like. So that's really cool to see with this. And then the last deck that we're going to cover is the Dragonite EX and Oricorio deck here. And I think the name of the game is, which is really interesting. They decided not to put the Dragonair into this, really just opting out to use your rare candies. The Double Dawn here seems to me that they're really hoping that your Zero Auras are coming up, which you have a 33% chance of getting. Your Oricorios are there to kind of help you stall out against your EX Mons, and then Dragonite EX, especially if you have 2 of them, your opponent can't do much, right? Like it's 180 here. I'm looking at the water to build that up. Obviously, this will still run dual energy because you have Oricorio that can run electric and colorless. You have Dragonite EX that needs both water and electric, and you have Zeraora that can generate its own electric, and so like it's not as dependent on needing 2 electrics right away in a row. The Dawn trying to give up the energy here, so that would Dragonite EX. If you start Tritini and Zeraora on like going second, you know, like you attack for 20, next turn you Dawn, you Rare Candy, you Dragonite EX, and then you're attacking for 180. Like that is insane to think that like that's how that goes, and like you can super speed into that if the cards all fall in line. So I'm interested to play around with Dragonite EX as well too, and this is a really cool and interesting way to get started here, with that being said as well. So yeah, y'all, I mean, again, like I said, super early when we're thinking about just kind of like the standings here. The deck that came out on top was Guzzlord EX Nihilego for this first tournament of Eevee Grove, excuse me. And then when we're looking at new cards that came out, Incineroar EX, actually we can take a look at this one as well. But the Flareon EX Turtonator out of the decks that we saw, that was like more of the popular newer card decks, that's the one that like did really well. Same goes with the Sylveon EX deck as well too. So that's pretty cool, the ones that we just saw. But like taking a look at the Incineroar EX deck, they are using the baby Flareon. Baby Flareon is pretty cool. I actually kind of like this. Hold up. This Litten here attacks for 20, Torracat attacks for 50. They're saying that like you are going to get attacked, and so like you don't need to do damage to yourself. They will attack you at some point, and that Scar Charge Smash will get charged up. So like why not go for damage instead of hurting yourself, which like can be an interesting take here. This Flareon being able to attach Fire Energy, being able to ramp up for as a non-EX is pretty sweet in my opinion as well. How making this go 110 or 170 is incredible. So this is pretty good. I'm gonna have to play around with this as well. But yeah, y'all, this is again just very interesting to see how cards as we get them always play into the meta that we've had as it transitions, what it also keeps a lookout for. We're going to continue to keep our pulse on this and report back to you all. As always, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button and definitely subscribe, so that way you can show that you like this here and we can continue doing it for a long time. All right, y'all, we'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.